Welcome to my channel. My name is Julia Bielig. I'm not an art historian, but I've been studying European history and art for many years. During my travels, I write travel notes, and each of my journeys is thematic. I immerse myself in a specific era or artistic school, and I share this with you. This is the second video about the evolution of evil. I'll post a link to the first video in the first comment. If you haven't watched it yet, start with that one. And now, the Great Beastification. Part 2. From medieval monsters to everyday evil. So, what was in the first part? In the first part, we traced a path almost 12,000 years long. Shigir Idol, 11,600 years ago, the first attempt to depict demons. Mesopotamia, demons as natural forces, Pazuzu, Lamashtu. Ancient Egypt, demons as guardians of the threshold. Greece and Rome, monsters as punishment for transgressions. Early Christianity, personification of evil, the emergence of Satan. Byzantium, first depictions of Satan. Blue Angel in Ravenna, 520 CE. By the beginning of the 11th century, evil had acquired a specific face and name: Satan, the fallen angel, enemy of God. But visually, he still resembled an angel. Everything is about to change. Chapter 1. Middle Ages. The Great Beastification. 11th century. The birth of the monster. Around 1020, Satan's image changes dramatically. In the Bamberg apocalypse created during this period, we see a scene where an angel chains Satan. Yes, those red-gray hoops are chains. You understood correctly. The dragon, embodiment of the devil, is bound in chains and cast into the abyss, and he no longer resembles an angel. Zoomorphic creature, a dragon with multiple heads, red body, color of blood, hell flames, monstrous jaws, bound in chains by an angel, punishment for 1,000 years. Visualization of the revelation of John. Around 1150, English miniaturists create one of the most terrifying images of evil. In the Winchester Psalter appears the famous Hellmouth, the enormous jaws of the dragon Leviathan, literally devouring sinners. Demons drag souls into the fiery womb of the monster, and an angel locks the gates of hell. You can see this same subject in the Queen Mary Apocalypse and in the work of Masters from Nottingham. These two works are from a somewhat later period, but they clearly show that hell is no longer an abstract place. It is. Giant jaws with sharp fangs, inside, terrible demons tormenting souls, fire and smoke, physical animal horror, literalization of the biblical metaphor, jaws of hell. Evil becomes a devouring monster. Why such a transformation? Artists needed to visually express the base nature of the fallen angel, how to show that he fell from heaven, strip him of angelic beauty, add bestial features. In this same 11th century, some devils acquire horns. Initially tiny, they would eventually become the dominant feature. Together with claws, animal ears and paws, tail, and from the 12th century, also bat wings instead of angelic ones. These details form the devil's appearance throughout the Middle Ages. Horned, tailed, goat-legged, and hairy. The devil sometimes so strongly resembled the ancient Greek god Pan that some researchers speak of direct continuity of images. On the left, ancient Pan, 2nd century CE. On the right, medieval Satan, 14th century. Similar? Of course. The theory is simple. Christians demonized pagan gods. Pan became the prototype of the devil. But there's a problem, 800 plus years between them. There is not a single image of a horned devil before the 11th century. By this time, the cult of Pan had been forgotten for at least 800 years. No one remembers ancient iconography. The truth is simpler. Medieval artists didn't read Ovid, they read Apocrypha. Texts described the devil as a beast. Artists drew what they read, a beast, not copying Pan, but following scripture. The similarity is coincidence, not continuity. In the 12th century, the devil's image becomes even stranger. It's no longer enough to simply attach horns and hooves. Artists begin experimenting with something completely new. Hildegard of Bingen, a nun, mystic, one of the most educated women of her time, records a striking vision. She has a vision of the church as the bride of Christ. The church appears as a praying woman. The upper half of her body is beautiful, a crown on her head, luxurious robes, light emanating from her. But below, between her legs, protrudes the head of the devil, with red burning eyes and rows of sharp teeth. And this devil speaks blasphemous words, imitating the incarnation. My power will be born from the womb of the woman. This is not just a shocking detail. This is a harbinger of what will happen to Satan's image next. Soon, additional faces will begin to appear on his body, on the chest, on the belly, on the buttocks, in the most unexpected places. The multiplicity of faces becomes a symbol. Evil is not just multifaceted, it grotesquely multiplies, distorting the very idea of the one God. Artists thus showed that the Lord of Evil parodies the Holy Trinity. Often one face is on the snout, the second on the belly, the third on the buttocks. This is not just grotesque. This is a theological statement. Satan perverts the divine order, placing the sacred where the base should be. 13th, 14th centuries, the hierarchy of hell. When hell got a king, Thomas Aquinas challenges a 1,000-year tradition. St. Augustine taught, order is good, chaos is evil. Thomas reverses this logic. Even evil has order. Among demons, there is hierarchy. Chiefs and subordinates, generals and soldiers, ministers and executors, and there is a king. Look at this mosaic. Florence, 1260-1270s. Dome of the San Giovanni Baptistery. In the center of hell, giant Lucifer. He is 3 times larger than the surrounding demons, hungrily devouring sinners. Around, crowds of subordinates, each in their place and busy with their task. This is not chaos. This is an empire. Young Dante saw this mosaic. Later, he would describe a similar scene in the finale of the Divine Comedy. 3-faced Lucifer in the center of frozen hell, monarch of the underworld. What happened? At this time, Europe is building centralized kingdoms, vertical of power, bureaucracy, titles, hierarchy, and human imagination projects this structure onto hell. If the King of France has a court, why shouldn't Satan have one? Historian Jérôme Bachet traced the transformation. From the 12th to the 15th century, the devil gradually receives all the regalia of a monarch. This is the Angers tapestry, end of the 14th century. The 7 heads of the dragon devil are adorned with crowns. And this is a theological symbol, not coincidence. By the 14th century, the image of the devil as ruler had already become established. In a 15th century French miniature, a 3-faced devil sits on a throne. In his hand, a scepter. From a distance, its finial resembles the heraldic lily of French kings. But look closely. This is not a flower. This is Satan himself, a horned bestial muzzle. Power parodies power. The old logic died. Order, good against chaos, evil. New logic, beneficial order against harmful order. Hell became a kingdom. Evil acquired a monarch. 1321 year, Dante's Divine Comedy. After the colossal success of Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy, the chaotic universe of hell is finally ordered. Hell in iconography begins to divide into clear levels, circles, moats, and crevices. This hierarchy is completed by the figure of Satan, standing upside down in the last 9th circle of hell, the frozen lake, where traitors are frozen in ice. Dante's Hell. 9 circles, each for a specific sin. The heavier the sin, the lower the circle. Satan, a 3-faced titan frozen in ice to his chest. Each mouth devours the greatest traitors. Judas, Brutus, Cassius. 15th century. The flowering of grotesque. In the 15th century, the devil mutates at a terrifying speed. He has new features. He loses his wings, a sign that the path to heaven is closed forever. He develops bird feathers and additional tails, horns growing all over his body, grotesque hybrids of incompatible parts. Why? 14th, 15th century, time of catastrophes. Black Death in the mid-14th century. A third of Europe dead. 100 Years' War. Great Schism, late 14th, early 15th century. 3 popes simultaneously. The end of the world seems near. Evil, everywhere, every day, aggressive. In The Garden of Earthly Delights, Bosch takes grotesque to the extreme. A bird demon devours sinners and disgorges them into a pit. Musical instruments, instruments of torture. A strange creature observes the chaos. Giant ears wander with a knife. Bosch's demons are hybrids of people, animals, and objects. They are almost comical, but that's exactly what's scary. Absurdity makes evil even more terrifying because it undermines the possibility of rational understanding. You can't negotiate with absurdity. You can't understand madness. Chapter 2. Renaissance and Baroque, Theatre of Evil, 15th, 17th centuries. The Renaissance changed the approach to depicting bodies and emotions. This is Hans Memling. Polyptych, Last Judgment, right panel, hell as a monstrous mouth. Sinners fall into the throat, demons drag souls, cauldrons with boiling bodies. Evil is active, dynamic, devouring. Hell here is a living monster. Jan van Eyck, 1430 year entrance to the underworld. On the diptych, Crucifixion and Last Judgment, the entrance to hell is represented by death in the form of a winged skeleton, which literally defecates sinners into Gehenna of fire. There, demons of various types already await sinners. Among them is a figure that is most likely Satan himself. His body resembles a dragon's carcass. Deer antlers grow from his head, flame bursts from his mouth. Renaissance, dramatism, and muscles. The Renaissance returned dramatism to demons. Michelangelo's Last Judgment, 1541 year. Humanism and the study of antiquity led to the body becoming an instrument of expression. Evil, muscular, dynamic, physically perfect. This is no longer a grotesque creature of disparate parts. This is an athlete, warrior, titan. Evil acquires grandeur. Baroque, light and shadow. Luca Signorelli, early 16th century. Fresco, The Preaching of the Antichrist in Orvieto Cathedral. The Antichrist preaches to the crowd, externally indistinguishable from Christ. Behind him, a bold horned devil whispers every word of the sermon. But the crowd doesn't see the demon. Only the viewer knows the truth. Evil is hidden not by shadow, but by the fact that people don't want to see. The most dangerous deception is one that looks like truth. Signorelli stands on the threshold of a new era. Baroque will take this theatricality and turn evil into spectacle. Dramatic poses. Play of light and shadow, emotional tension, art for art's sake. Chapter 3, Romanticism, the Great Turning Point. The Romantics made a revolution. 1667 year was a turning point. In this year, John Milton publishes Paradise Lost, an epic poem about Satan's rebellion against God. And something amazing happens. Satan becomes a tragic hero. He is noble, eloquent, charming. He rebelled not out of malice, but out of pride and desire for freedom. Satan's famous phrase, "Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven." Milton, unwittingly, he was a deeply religious man, created an image of Satan that 19th century romantics would turn into a symbol of rebellion against tyranny. 18th, 19th centuries. Age of individualism. The Enlightenment and Romanticism fundamentally changed the perception of evil. Look at this watercolor illustration of Milton's Paradise Lost by William Blake, 1808 year. Satan arousing the rebel angels. What are the key shifts here? Rebellion against traditional morality becomes a value. Individualism is more important than obedience. Satan as a symbol of freedom, not sin. The Enlightenment questions literal belief in the devil. Evil ceased to be external, it became part of the human soul. Visual revolution. The ridiculous monster transforms into a majestic naked youth. This is a radical transformation of the image. Look at this sculpture. 1842 year, Joseph Giefs, the genius of evil. Belgian sculptor creates a statue for the cathedral in Liège. Naked youth with bat wings. Beautiful, regular facial features, muscular body. The devil turned out so beautiful that the local bishop asked to remove the statue from the church. Newspapers wrote, "Such a Satan could distract young girls from prayer and sermons." And this is 1848 year Guillaume Giefs, corrected version. Joseph's brother creates a replacement for the cathedral. His Lucifer is not a seducer, but a repentant sinner. He cries, expression of grief and repentance, holds crown and scepter. Symbols of earthly power he renounced, more muscular and not so young, loins covered with drapery so as not to embarrass parishioners, chain at his foot. Chained, defeated, small horns barely visible in hair. The bishop accepted this version. It still adorns the cathedral in Liège. But the beauty remained. This Lucifer is beautiful. Only now there is suffering in his beauty. Evil is tragic. 1847 year, Alexandre Cabanel, The Fallen Angel. French artist Alexandre Cabanel paints Satan in the form of a man with a luxurious body. Traditional bat wings are replaced by bird wings. This brings the figure even closer to the image of a heavenly messenger. The face expresses anger and suffering simultaneously. This is not a monster. This is an exile, a tragic hero. 1866 year, Gustave Doré. Illustrations for Milton. French engraver creates a series of illustrations for Paradise Lost. His Satan is majestic, like angels, differs from them only in wing shape, bat wings, and darker color. The scene of falling from heaven is dramatic, epic. Satan is not pitiful, he is heroic, even in defeat. 1885 year. Ricardo Belver, Fallen Angel Fountain. Spanish sculptor creates a luxurious fountain. The statue received many awards and was exhibited at the Prado Museum. Belver's devil, naked, indecent by the standards of that time. Ankle and wrist wrapped by a snake, bird wings protrude from shoulders, dynamic pose. Moment of fall, he is magnificent. 1890 year, Franz von Stuck, Dark Prince. German artist depicts Satan darker and more mysterious. Wings of black feathers. Eyes seem to glow from within with hellfire. Atmosphere of dark seductiveness. For the first time, evil acquired beauty. From ugly monster to sexual beauty and noble figure. This is not just an aesthetic choice, this is a philosophical turn. Romanticism reconceptualizes evil as tragedy, as the price of freedom, as an inevitable part of human experience. Not an external enemy, but an internal dimension of the soul. Chapter 4, 19th-20th century, Interiorization. The 19th century moved evil inside the psyche. Mikhail Vrubel, 1890 year. Seated demon, Russian artist creates an image that radically differs from everything before. This is not a terrifying monster. This is not a majestic rebel. This is a lonely, melancholy figure. Vrubel's demon sits, arms wrapped around knees. His gaze is directed into the distance with infinite sadness. Beautiful, almost human face. He is surrounded by flowers, but does not rejoice in them evil as existential crisis. This is not horror, but loneliness. Not threat, but suffering. Vrubel shows evil not as an external force, but as an internal state of the soul. The 20th century brings three fundamental discoveries about the nature of evil. First, Sigmund Freud, evil as part of the unconscious. Freud claims, evil is not an external enemy, but part of our psyche. The id, this is the primitive, unconscious part of the psyche that contains basic instincts, impulses, and desires, primitive and destructive. These are repressed desires, aggressive fantasies. All this doesn't disappear. It hides in the unconscious and manifests in dreams, slips of the tongue, neuroses. Conclusion. Demons live within us. Satan is the shadow, in Carl Jung's terminology, the repressed part of personality. Second, the Holocaust and Gulag, the banality of evil. The 20th century proves evil can look like an ordinary person. Adolf Eichmann, one of the main organizers of the Holocaust, was not a monster with horns. He was a bureaucrat, a clerk. Here he is, standing at the table, far left in the photo. At the trial in Jerusalem in 1961, he spoke of following orders and administrative procedures. Hannah Arendt, observing the trial, introduces the term, the banality of evil. Evil is not diabolical genius, but absence of thinking, inability to see another person as human, mindless following of the system. And third, alienation and disintegration of personality. The 20th century era of mass society, industrialization, urbanization. Man becomes a cog in the system. Literature and cinema explore new forms of evil. Alienation, Kafka, man wakes up as an insect, madness, psychological thrillers, disintegration of personality, split personality, multiple personality. Evil is the loss of self. Chapter 5. Modernity. Fragmentation. In the 21st century, evil ceases to be personal. It's built into systems. Corporations depersonalizing the individual. Social media algorithms manipulating consciousness. Financial pyramids based on deception. Environmental catastrophe as a result of collective actions. WHO's to blame? Everyone and no one. There's no horned monster to defeat. Evil is diffuse, distributed, built into the very structure of modernity. Modern cinema and literature make villains complex, understandable, human. The Joker. Not a villain, but a victim of society. A mentally ill person, abandoned by the healthcare system, mocked by a TV host, beaten by teenagers. His crimes are a cry of despair. Hannibal Lecter. Serial killer cannibal, but also aesthete, intellectual, art connoisseur. He charms viewers with his manners and intelligence. We are horrified by his actions, but cannot help admiring his personality. Tony Soprano, mafioso, killer, extortionist, but also loving father, loyal friend, as long as friends are loyal to him, man with panic attacks. We see him in sessions with a psychotherapist, understand his traumas, empathize with his problems. Evil becomes relative, contextual, human. And finale, the image of evil always shows who we really are. The Shigir idol 11,600 years ago depicted demons to warn of boundaries. Medieval monsters frightened illiterate parishioners in churches. Romantic Satan reflected the thirst for freedom and rebellion. The 20th century showed evil in a gray suit signing death sentences. And today, evil is in the algorithm, in the system. But don't think that if evil is in the algorithm and in the system, you're not responsible for anything. Look at the evil within yourself, at the evil that lives in each of us, and make your choice. What will evil look like in 100 years? Artificial intelligence without ethics? Climate catastrophe with no face? Or something completely new that we cannot yet imagine? One thing can be said for certain. Evil will reflect our deepest fears because it has always been a mirror. Thank you for watching this video. This project is non-commercial and everything I do is from the heart. But I would be very pleased if you share a link to my channel with your friends, like it, and leave your feedback about what else you would like to hear. Visit my channel often. There's a lot of interesting content. Until next time, all the best to you.